everyone is trickling in. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Savina Chacheva, and welcome to Meal Planning 101, presented by Lori Bumbaco, the Center's Oncology Dietitian. Before we get started with the lecture, I would like to share more about the Cancer Wellness Center. The center was founded in 1989, is a nonprofit organization with a mission to help anyone touched by cancer find a way forward. Each year, our free counseling services, support groups, health and nutrition programs serve over 2,000 community members of all ages and backgrounds. People with cancer, family members, friends, and caregivers all come to us to connect and cope. Our services, which are both virtual and in person, include education programs like the one today that aim to help you navigate the varied challenges that come with living with a cancer diagnosis. Wellness classes like yoga, meditation, exercise, and more that provide a holistic approach to healthy living, and support services including counseling for individuals, families, couples, children, and those bereaved, as well as support groups that are designed to help our participants manage the mental and emotional impact of cancer. If you would like to learn more about the center and connect to our free programs and services, please visit cancerwellness.org, and the link will be included in the chat. Thank you, and I would like to welcome Lori.
I couldn't unmute myself after all this time, all these years. Welcome, everybody. Thank you, Sabina, for the introduction, and thank you for attending today virtually. I do wish we could be in person, but we will make the best of today's session. I have about an hour. I'm going to allow for time at the end for some Q&A. So I do encourage, though, along the way, if you have any questions or comments or any other tips to share or anything to explore, put it in the chat so that I can address them at the end. Just a little bit more about me. I've been at the center for almost 11 years now, and I'm really proud to be a part of the team at Cancer Wellness Center because I have the opportunity to provide such a wealth of information related to oncology nutrition. I've only ever worked as a dietitian in oncology, and so I do think that my years of experience help me to understand best how to serve our participants and our population at Cancer Wellness Center across the continuum of your care. So whether you are newly diagnosed or being actively treated or are post-treatment on a maintenance medication, hopefully you will gain a little bit more understanding of healthy eating today with me. But also too, I encourage you to always check out the calendar, check out our YouTube channel because there's so much more information to discover for yourself. I do meet with individuals one-on-one. If you are eligible to do that, just stay on too, and we can give you some more information about that. I do think ultimately at the end of the day, if you want to get the best nutrition guidance, the way to do that is working one-on-one with a dietitian like me. So meal planning 101. I don't know if I'm the person who is the expert in this subject, but I'm going to try my best. I think that every time I approach meal planning, it looks different. And I hope to communicate that with you today as well, that it doesn't have to necessarily be what you think it needs to be. It doesn't need to be perfect. Consider where you are. And that's really an important first step because wherever you are, if you want to make a sustainable change, you have to recognize a realistic approach is important, right, to doing that. And so hopefully today, no matter where you are in the process of meal planning, if you're like me and hardly do it, or if you're an expert and you could give some advice to all of us, just think about something from today that maybe you can learn and apply starting tomorrow, or maybe even tonight for dinner. I don't know, we'll see. So on my agenda for this evening, just going to advance the slide. Sorry, having some difficulties here today. My arrow isn't wanting to work. Okay, hang on one sec. There we go. All that chatter, and now here I am. I can't advance my slide. All right, and what I'm going to do is just escape. Hang on one sec if I can. I might need to just start over here. Things are just a little slow, so bear with me. While I'm trying to figure this out, I just want to also promote one of my favorite programs. It's called Ask the Dietitian. And it's so fabulous. It's the first Friday of every month. It's usually decently attended, but I think we can use more participation. It's the first Friday of the month. Hang on, I'm going to stop my share and just start over. Okay, sorry about this all. Um, let's see if I can start from scratch. Ask the Dietitian, we pick a topic and then you get to ask me questions about it. So a lot of people find they try to sneak in some questions that might not be related to the topic, and that's fine. We try to stick to our answers as best as possible. But it's just look on the calendar. It's 1 o'clock on Fridays and it's virtual. But those are also always recorded. So we've been doing it for years now. And so we've covered like every topic under the sun. But our last topic was on saturated fats because that has sort of implications with the new release of the dietary guidelines for Americans. So it got a little controversial, a little spicy in our last Ask the Dietitian. But moving forward, I think if you are just curious to know about trending topics in nutrition, and especially layering into that oncology specific information, then you might enjoy that program as well. All right, so now that I got things up and running, here we go. So I'm going to start first with, of course, why is it important to even meal plan, right? If we think hopefully you think it's important, that's why you're here, but I'm going to give you all the reasons to consider. But if we're going to plan meals, and probably you're thinking, I want to eat healthy as well, I want to define that for you. And it's going to be a general overview, but it's going to be how to approach meal planning with health and nutrition in mind. There's something called the 3 Ps of meal planning. I didn't come up with that, but I kind of like it. And it helps to really divide and conquer as we approach something that sometimes seems as daunting as meal planning. And then inserting this idea of a healthy plate model, which is something that dietitians have used for a long time now. When you think about what you're going to eat, even if you didn't plan and you're out at a restaurant, if you can structure your plate to look like this healthy plate, then you're off and running and you're eating a nutritious diet. So sometimes that helps as a guide in a very practical way to help you understand and approach nutrition. Now, in our in-person program last week, we did do a demo, and I'm going to share with you some pictures from that as well as the recipe from that. So if you want to try to replicate this in your own kitchen at home, I would love it if you could do that and then share those pictures with us too. Okay, so why is meal planning beneficial? That's probably a good place to start, right? So there is no question on the top of the mind of any dietitian, it's how do we eat more nutritious foods, right? So when we meal plan, we definitely have increased our chances of doing this, of accomplishing what dietitians recommend. And so when we prepare meals at home, what the research shows, and this has actually been studied, we're going to eat less calories, less salt and sodium, and then less saturated fat, which are all things that most Americans are over consuming, and that becomes a problem over time. We also eat more of the good stuff, such as vegetables. And in that category, I would say fiber as well because of this, because vegetables are a really great way to eat more fiber in the diet. This is something that I would consider very important in my life right now. It's going to save me some time and money, which are precious resources, right? So when we meal plan, it allows for that to happen. It allows us to be more efficient. We're going to be efficient with our time when we go shopping, when we actually prepare meals. It might take a little upfront time, but during the week, I now have much more better use of my time. And it's also going to minimize food waste, which that helps us save money as well. I'm a big proponent of trying to minimize food waste as well. So that really speaks to me. It reduces stress. Who I don't think I've met anyone that doesn't have stress that they'd like to manage. And the center is great for helping us do that with a lot of other programs besides nutrition. But when we meal plan, it helps us really be more decisive. And we don't have to worry about the stress and the last minute decisions about what's for dinner, right? Because that to me is sort of one of my pet peeves. What's for dinner? I thought we talked about this already, right? And arguably one of the most important things that meal planning does is that it connects us. So if we're planning meals and we have our family in mind, or if we live alone, this gives us this opportunity to really be intentional and invest time and energy in a way that we're dedicating to this space of nourishing our body, right? So, whether we're with family members or loved ones and we're gathering around the table, there's no question that's going to elevate our relationships to one another. But if we're also, if we live alone and we dedicate the time, this is called self care. We're dedicating time to planning a meal and sitting in a space that is conducive to good nutrition, right? And that's going to nourish us, mind and body. Okay. So for most people, this is what's advised to eat in a day. And now the dietary guidelines for Americans shifted this a little bit, but many dietitians that I've been speaking to were kind of sticking to the same old information that we have from decades of research. And this is what we like to advise that for most people, we're going to eat about 4 to 6 servings of whole grains a day, maybe up to 6 servings of vegetables. I really do encourage that for my veggie eaters. Could they double the amount they're eating, right? 2 to 4 servings of fruit, about 3 servings of proteins, 2 servings of dairy or dairy alternatives if you're not having any cow's milk or products made from it. And then a couple servings a day at most. Really, it goes up to like 4 to 5 per week. So that's maybe not even 1 serving a day for nuts and seeds. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, I don't know, like, how do I make sense of this? And this is where, again, if you work with a dietitian, this will be important because some people maybe are eating in a vegan diet and they may need to shift some of these choices or be more intentional about some of their choices. Some people might be consuming um, certain foods for other chronic disease conditions, and maybe they need to shift some of these portions or be, again, intentional. So, for example, if someone has diabetes or has some blood sugar control issues, we may shift or skew towards the lower end of the range for fruit and whole grains, and then as well as dairy, because we might shift those carbohydrates into a very controlled space. And again, that's medical nutrition therapy where a dietitian can help with that. Okay. So what you see on the images below, that's sort of like how to accomplish this in a day. So for example, starting the day with a bowl of oats and then adding some fresh fruit, maybe adding some nuts or seeds to that, having a nice snack in the morning with some fruit and some yogurt, having a nice hearty salad for lunch with some protein. So I see some chickpeas in there. There might be a little bit of low-fat cheese, some chopped up eggs, having some hummus with veggies for another snack, and then a nice hearty dinner with some fish and roasted vegetables. And that little image on the bottom right-hand corner is forbidden rice. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you to look for it. It's this beautiful whole grain rice that cooks to this really beautiful, deep, rich purple color, really high in fiber, really great tasting, and certainly special. So just an idea of what we would encourage you to eat in a day. Oh, and then our fats. Okay, so we want to prepare our meals using some healthy fats, right? So I'm going to talk more about that. But sometimes we might eat something like an avocado on the salad. We're going to count that towards our fat choices. Or maybe we're preparing our fish or our roasted vegetables with some avocado oil or olive oil. And that's going to be where we dedicate fat servings in meal preparation. So this is not, this is sort of another way of visualizing or sort of explaining to you. Now, when you're going to get these slides so you can see this, and that's why I thought I would include it for the virtual presentation. I actually didn't do this last week in the in-person presentation, but if you would like to see this for yourself, it kind of gives you examples of what counts for a serving, right? So if you're having a serving of fruit, this is what that would be the equivalent of. And I like this because it sort of gives us the opportunity as well to track. And if we're being mindful or we're trying to make some changes, again, this could be whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're just working on eating more whole grains. So you just focus on that section alone. And maybe you find some specific ways to find more whole grains in your diet. But this is sort of like a daily approach of what we recommend within a day. Okay. And there we go again with advancing the slides. I'm sorry, everyone. Let's see if I can advance this way. Nope. I'm so sorry, everyone. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to dive deeper into each of our choices and why they're there and why they're part of a cancer protective diet. So we're going to start with our whole plant foods. And I got to start with our beans and our legumes. So legumes being beans, but also lentils and then our split peas as well. They're very high in nutrition, and most Americans do not eat a lot of beans. And mostly, I find cancer survivors as well are in this category. Not only do they give us some really precious plant protein, but they also give us fiber. But there's a lot of nutrients to be found in it. So from our B vitamins to iron to calcium and potassium and zinc, and some of those are underconsumed in the American diet. The reason why we encourage them, not only for the nutrition, is that when we eat more of them, it's been shown to help control and reduce our blood sugars, help improve our cholesterol levels, and also supports our gut health. All really good things. Now, sometimes people are hesitant with beans for lots of reasons, and maybe we'll talk about that when time allows at the end. But one of my favorite resources for how to approach beans, how to how to prepare them, how to batch cook them, how to use them in one bag of beans for 5 different meals. It's this website, pulses.org, is like soup to nuts, one of my favorites. I'm on it regularly to learn more for myself. Now, some people ask, what about canned beans? And certainly canned beans fit into this category as well. We do encourage low salt or no added salt varieties when possible. And we do encourage that you rinse them very well, because when we rinse them, we remove up to 40% of the sodium that's in them. But I would argue that a can of beans belongs in your pantry, and I'm going to talk about that next too. Next kind of category of healthful cancer protective foods are whole grains. Another thing that Americans tend to underconsume, including our cancer survivors, these, like beans, are versatile. They're sort of like a blank slate. So to be honest, you can consume beans and whole grains for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. Like there's no place you can't find a way to enjoy them. It's awesome. So whole grains are versatile, very high in nutrition as well, but they're associated with reducing the risk for heart disease, cancer, some cancer types, diabetes, as well as obesity. So I find some people are still a little concerned about the carbs in whole grains, when that's unfortunate, because they have been associated with improving health outcomes and actually helping to manage our weight. So it's a great opportunity to explore if you haven't already tapped into the variety of whole grains that are available to us. They're high in fiber, and they also contain many of the same minerals that beans have, like iron as well as potassium. There's also some magnesium in some of our whole grains. And then there also are some phytochemicals. Beans and legumes have phytochemicals as well, but like that forbidden rice that I showed you a picture of, that black color, or that deep purple, almost black color, actually is from a phytochemical. It's just like as if you were to eat blackberries, but it's in the rice, which is wild, right? And that naturally occurs in the plant. And what those pigments do are that they offer some protection for some crazy reason to the plant, in terms of it's supporting its immune system or immune function. And when we ingest those pigments, they transfer over to help our immune system. It's like wild to me. So that's why we want to explore eating the rainbow for natural colors of plant foods. Now, one of my favorite resources in the kitchen for whole grains is Whole Grains Council. So if you haven't already explored that for yourself, I encourage you. Very similar to pulses.org, in that it's like soup to nuts, just so comprehensive. It lists all the different whole grains. There's a little history lesson involved with them, but how to make it less intimidating in terms of buying some whole grains and preparing them in your kitchen in very simple but delicious ways. Now, no oncology dietitian would present about a healthy diet without including fruits and vegetables. You knew this was coming, right? So they are at the top of our list for cancer fighting nutrients inside these little choices. They really offer us bang for buck. So if we can kind of sneak them in, because most Americans, again, fail the report card for eating fruits and vegetables. So we can all do better here. If a lot of times I find it's helpful for people to take what they're eating and then just add, right? So could they, if they're making eggs in the morning or a tofu scramble, could they make sure they're putting some vegetables in there? If they're enjoying some yogurt, could they put some fruit on top? If they're making a salad, let's just say, which would load up on veggies, right? But maybe you can make it an interesting salad with different types of veggies. The sky's the limit. There's lots of opportunities, but the fun of it is doing it in a way that you enjoy and that you agree you can do, right? There's really no right or wrong. Now, I think a variety, if you're already consuming the recommended amounts of fruits and vegetables, then think variety. And this is where I'm at in my life. I kind of eat the same foods every day. So I feel I could do better by choosing a more of a variety. And one of the best ways to do that is think about seasonality. And so right now, citrus fruits are a great choice for us to explore. They're going to pop up, they already have in our grocery stores. They tend to be more economically priced. And they tend to be more delicious. So eating with the seasons is a great way to approach eating more fruits and vegetables. Okay. Now, frozen vegetables and fruits also count. So look in that freezer section of your grocery store and look for some. And this is where I really do find some very helpful options, such as bell peppers that are tri-colored and already washed and sliced for me. It's such a time saver. So sometimes I'll put that and saute that with some onions and make my bean tacos. Very easy, right? Um, there are some berry blends where typically I don't eat cherries, but I find frozen cherries in the grocery store or things like frozen mango. I had someone last week tell me that she enjoys frozen avocado. You know, like these things exist. And the only thing that's in that package is the fruit or the vegetable. It tends to be just as nutritious, sometimes even more, because they tend to pick them when they're ripe, which is when most of the nutrition has kind of blossomed. And then they freeze it right there. And there's no additives. Bonus, right? So, all great reasons to include frozen vegetables. I find I use them in a lot of different ways. And we could talk about that at the end as well. But I find what I like the most about it is that it's convenient and I only take what I need. So, it really does help me minimize food waste as well. Okay, so frozen section, it's our friend for sure. Now, my favorite resource for fruits and veggies to learn more about them, learn more about the nutrition, learn more about ways to prepare them that are simple or complicated. Like you get to decide based on this website, fruitsandveggies.org. They even have like webinars, they have free resources. One of my favorites. So please check that one out as well. This image I copied and pasted from fruitsandveggies.org, and it's just some of the in season fruits and vegetables right now. Like I shared, the citrus fruit is delicious right now. Okay. So lots of fun to be had. I tried to make nutrition fun. So as we approach meal planning, it's important to think of this balanced plate. And this is helpful, I would say, even if you're not meal planning, right? So if you're thinking, I want to eat more nutritious, think about this plate. So 2/3 of the plate is occupied by plant foods. So, um, and that's a misspelling there. It shouldn't say plate food. It should say plant food. So lots of veggies or fruit, and then lots of whole grains, right? Or even beans there. And then the 1/3 or maybe a quarter of the plate is for our animal food. So maybe it's something like if we're having dairy, the yogurt, or if we're having some fish, or we're having some poultry or eggs, that's where that would go in this little section on the tippity top, right? But the majority of what we're eating is high quality whole plant foods, right? As much as possible. And there's lots of ways to apply this, and I can help with that too. And I'll show you right now. So we'll start with breakfast. So, and this is also in terms of thinking of that plate, but also thinking about maximizing and balancing nutrition. So we're going to include some proteins like eggs, Greek yogurt, nut butter, cottage cheese, milk, or some alternatives or substitutes, our fruits and veggies, our whole grains or starches, or our starchy vegetables like sweet potatoes. I've seen it done. People have sweet potatoes for breakfast. And then our healthy fats like avocado oil, olive oil, nuts and seeds, and then our nut butter. So this is what that would look like if we're, especially if we're meal planning. Things like overnight oats, which I'm going to help share that more about that in a moment. We can make a batch of overnight oats and put them in little mason jars for a good 4 to 5 days. They're going to last in the fridge. And it's some oats with some fruit, with some dairy. Like, talk about balance and nutrition, and in a very convenient way. You can put some chia seeds in there. You can top it with some walnuts or almonds when you take it out. And there's a lot of different versions of overnight oats as well. You can take it on the go and eat it cold. You can warm it up the next morning. Lots of ways to enjoy it. Avocado toast. Again, we're having, now the avocados are healthy fat there, but we're having maybe our sourdough or a whole wheat toast, and we're going to top it. So on here, I think those are some sprouts or even microgreens, but I love to slice tomato or cucumber, get some vegetables in there, right? You can put an egg on top and boom, you have meals for the week. You're going to have to make them that morning, but that takes literally 5 minutes. All right. Some of you may have seen, or I know I've done this in some of the groups at the center. Take your muffin tin and scramble some eggs or egg whites. I've seen someone do this with tofu as well, and scramble in some, maybe a little bit of low-fat cheese and some veggies. Bake them off in the oven, and now you have these, again, portable, on the go. You can eat it cold. You can eat it for a snack or breakfast. You can warm it up. You can freeze these. So it makes meal prep doable in terms of finding that protein, those vegetables, and maybe a low fat choice in there as well. Just like those overnight oats, I've seen people successfully make Greek yogurt parfaits where they just kind of line up some Greek yogurt in a mason jar with some nuts or seeds and then adding some fresh fruit. And then you just seal them up and grab and go in the morning. Now, we also can use our slow cooker. And I've done this successfully. So you wake up in the morning to some breakfast quinoa. And there are tons of recipes out there where this can be accomplished. And the idea here again is that you're just taking a whole grain and then and it's super high in fiber, but then you're adding some fruits to that, or maybe even vegetables. I've seen that done, and then topping it with some nuts or seeds. And you've got this hearty, nutritious way to start the day. Okay. Now for lunch and dinner, so we're kind of like thinking entrees here. Similarly, like, where are we going to find our high quality proteins from things like tofu, tempeh, our beans, our lentils, our chicken, our fish, our eggs, fruits and vegetables, and in all of them. And then it's some examples of whole grains and starchy vegetables, and then some of our healthy fats. So let's see what that would look like. Right in the middle, right off the top of my head, I think of sheet pans. I do sheet pans at least once a week, sometimes more. And this can either help you make your meal for that night, or you can make this and save some for leftover for lunch the next day. And basically what it is a protein, whether it's fish or chicken or something like tofu or tempeh. You line it up with your vegetables and then maybe a starchy vegetable, and boom, it's all on one sheet pan. So it's super easy to clean up as well. Lots of different versions to explore with sheet pans as well. You can apply so many different spices and herbs and flavors, really to satisfy everybody in the family. Love to make a big old batch of soup, right? That is potentially freezer friendly or sets you up to have several different meals for the week. Love to make turkey meatballs ahead of time, or like a turkey meatloaf, or sometimes I make bean versions of these. But you see kind of what I'm doing here. We're adding a lot of color. Glory bowls are this first image on the bottom left here, and that is a really great way to clean out the fridge. I do this very often on the weekends before I go grocery shopping. So if I have some edamame left over, or maybe I'm needing to throw out my brown rice because it's going to go bad, I just dump everything in a bowl. Maybe I have some leftover greens and I have some roasted vegetables left over. I have a hard-boiled egg, and just dump it in a bowl. You add a little dressing, a little chopped avocado, or like a little hummus, and it's delicious. That like totally suits me. But a lot of people with meal prep, especially for lunch, successfully make those types of glory bowls where they just kind of divide up into a little container, some whole grains, some vegetables, a little bit of protein, and then a yummy dressing, and boom, it's even a better version of a salad. Really hearty, really delicious. Okay. Now we can't leave out snacks, right? So for our snacks, if you're someone who snacks, I think they are healthy when they're planned, right? So I think a lot of our highly processed foods tend to come from snacks. And so, if you agree that that's an area for improvement for you, this is where planning might be helpful. So, things like hummus with vegetables. It's so easy, so delicious, so accessible, in my opinion. I like to do vegetables with some guacamole sometimes. You can buy guacamole as is, or you can make it from scratch. I love yogurt or cottage cheese with some nuts and fresh fruit, hard boiled eggs, right? If you meal prep and batch cook some hard boiled eggs, you can easily take that with you to go for a snack. Edamame is delicious. There are pre-cooked versions of edamame that are in the freezer. So you can just thaw them out overnight or just warm them up in the microwave and you have a delicious, really hearty, healthy snack. And then some more examples you see on there. I'm going to keep moving for time. So let's move into the three P's of meal planning. Were you guessing what the three P's might be? Well, now we're here. So it's planning, purchasing, and preparing. So let's talk about each of them. So for planning, I love the idea. This is usually what's recommended of setting aside a specific day. Most people that makes sense if they're, especially if they're working, to think about Sunday to do that. Some people do twice a week. I've sort of, when I'm on, this is sort of what I do because by midweek, I'm like, I need to reassess here. I might need to plan out the rest of the week, or I just don't have the energy to maybe think about the entire week. And I have the time on a Wednesday night or a Thursday night to think about, okay, what else can I plan for the rest of the week? And what you're doing here is you're just thinking, okay, what do we have coming up this week? What appointments do I have? What social engagements do I have? What's going on with my work schedule? So that you can insert meals that work. And sometimes part of planning is, okay, I have a late work meeting. I won't get home till 7 o'clock. So I'm going to pick up takeout on the way. And that's part of meal planning because again, if you're planning, then you have intention to eat in a way that serves you. Okay. And usually nutrition is part of that. If we're busy, that's going to derail the best of intentions. It gets in our way, right? And the stress is not good for us either. I shared this at the start. It doesn't need to be complicated. Some people like a good old pen and paper. I've had people do that and show me what they've done, and I just think I applaud that. I think that's how my mind works. When I write it down, it usually soaks into my brain. But some people like to, like, they love Excel. They're really proficient at it, and that's what works for them and their family. But I would say think about what works for you, especially if you're not meal planning now. What appeals to you? Because then you're more likely to actually do it and do it for the long haul, right? Look through what you have on hand. I think this is a really important step. I do this all the time. This is where I actually excel, I will say. So, what do we have that maybe needs to go pretty soon or might inspire a meal? So, for example, if I have some tomato marinara sauce that I made from last week, it's in the freezer, I can pull it out. Maybe I'm going to make some turkey meatballs and get some zucchini and make some zucchini noodles. It can inspire you, but also help prevent food waste and help use up what you have on hand, right? So then I'm just going to fill in what I don't have. Maybe I already have some zucchini left over or some frozen zucchini noodles because those things exist too. So I just need to fill in and write into my plan what else I need to help finish that meal. Um, and it also helps to replenish, right? So let's say I'm going to use up my last bag of quinoa, then I know I need to get some more and add it to my list. So it keeps your pantry items and your fridge and your frozen options stocked as well, because it's really important to keep those pantry staples replenished as much as you can. Um, what you can do in meal planning as well is, again, here's where you decide. You can cook your full meals, right? Maybe you want to make dinners from Monday through Friday. That to me sounds daunting. I wouldn't do it for me, but that works for some people. Maybe so that when you cook it, all you got to do is reheat it, pull it out of the freezer and just reheat it. Some people like to pre-prep, and that's me. So I might batch cook some whole grains. I might batch cook some beans. I might batch cook my proteins. And then all I have to do during the week is just assemble them basically. So if I batch cook some chicken and made some shredded chicken, maybe I'm going to make sure, again, I'm going back to those tacos or fajitas. I'm going to get my whole grain wraps. I'm going to make sure I have my veggies to saute and some salsa and some avocado. Boom, I can just assemble that meal that much more quickly during the week. No. This is a great way to demonstrate for you how to meal plan. So this is from actually myplate.gov, which is now being replaced by our current choices. So hang on to this as much as you can. But this is a good example of just like a calendar that you can use just as a template if you're looking for some ideas. This is not my handwriting, but this I took from another dietitian who was sort of going through for the week what's going on, right? So we have this here, this here, this here. Let's insert here. And you can see like sometimes it's takeout, right? Um, Here's a day where I'm going to be by myself. So I'm going to make this, and then listing some meals on the side. This to me is appealing because this is more manageable for me. I can carry this piece of paper with me everywhere. But it just kind of, you get the point here with this. It just goes through what do we have coming up this week that I need to work around and what meals can I insert to make this happen. There are apps, just like for app for everything, right? So there's an app called Meal Line or Me Line. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And you see here the image of it. You can get it on a smartphone. There is a website. You can generate, of course, there's a free version and a paid for version. So it's really up to you to decide what you think is best. You can generate a list of some meals based on your health goals. So you can plot out like Mediterranean meals. You can plot out that you're flexitarian, or maybe you're vegan, or maybe you're carb conscious. And it generates a list of meals. And then you kind of pick which ones you would like to have. And then from there, it generates a grocery list for you. How cool is that? So this is just an example of something I did. I picked like 4 meals because I was like, I think 4 meals would be doable. And so I love how I must have picked nicely because most of the list items on the list are from the produce section. Tell me you're a dietitian without telling me you're a dietitian, right? But you might want to explore that as well. And again, you can go on a PC or on your iPad and check out their website as well. You could also just use good old AI or search Google. There are plans out there, and some dietitians cringe a little bit when we're asked to meal plan because inherently what happens is someone comes back and says, I don't like this. I won't eat that. Can you do this instead? So sometimes someone like myself, I like to insert something like this and then work with somebody on this. Now, when you get these slides, the image on the left is a Mediterranean style meal plan. So it doesn't give you exact recipes, but it gives you the inspiration for setting up a plan for the week, right? And it gives you breakfast through dinner with a snack for each day, which is a lot. The image on the right is actually from, I believe it's Dana Farber. And this is a lot of inspiration taken from The Cancer Fighting Kitchen, which is a cookbook by Rebecca Katz. And she's a great chef, has several cookbooks. And when you get these slides, you can actually click on the blue underlined font and it'll pull you over to those recipes. So if you're someone who's more recipe minded and would like some inspiration, this is a meal plan with breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a snack and a dessert. How lucky are we? With some recipes specifically to pull from. So that might appeal to you as well. I also like to use this. So there's lots of options here. So this is a meal plan. And a lot of times, again, when we're designating calories, it's how we decide what is enough. Because when we have a calorie allotment, then we insert the right food groups and servings and portion size of each so that we're getting a balanced, healthy overall diet, right? So I love something like this because it goes through breakfast, and I just included breakfast and lunch here, but there's also dinner and snack. And it just lets you choose of the options. So I'm going to choose 3 servings of protein. Each one of these counts for 1. So I get to pick 3 in this category. Maybe I pick 3 of one of them. You get what I'm trying to get at. But it helps in terms of deciding what to eat because sometimes people ask me that. So you might like a template like this one. And I can include that link more specifically if you're curious to explore more about that. They have different calorie allotments as well. So if you're looking to eat more than 1,500 calories or a little bit less than that, it's all accessible on their website. So I happen to really like this way of planning too. All right, let's move over to purchasing. We're going to send you this shopping guide. It's almost like a grocery list, and it's from the New American Plate, as well as the American Institute for Cancer Research. So all the food choices on this list are cancer protective. They've been vetted by the experts. Now, it's important when we go food shopping to try not to be rushed, right? To make sure the intention follows through so that when we're in the store, we're really focused. We're not just breezing through there, we're choosing wisely, but we're sticking to our list and we're not necessarily hungry because I don't know about you. When I go to the store hungry, there definitely are more items that end up in my cart than I planned. Stick to your lists, right? And stick to the aisles even that contain what you need. Some people who are just looking to cut out some highly processed or ultra processed foods, they don't even go down those aisles anymore because they just are too tempting. And so when they say no at the grocery store, it avoids them having to say no a million times at home, right? By not buying them. I think bulk items are helpful, especially if you're planning to batch cook. It's definitely going to be what probably saves you the most money as well. I do think that if you are someone like me who might, find that on a weeknight you might be too busy you want to take advantage of convenient options. There are pre-cut vegetables. There's pre-cut fruit as well, great for snacks or breakfast or something or part of a meal. They are going to cost a little more, but they're a huge time saver. And I definitely have done that for nights when I didn't know what was for dinner. And I was happy because, at least I ate the veggies, and they have lots of different choices to choose from now. And I just popped it on a sheet pan with some proteins and boom, I had dinner successfully done. And it was just that much of a time saver that it made sense for our family. I think bag salads, there's so many different versions now. There's like salad kits now. I mean, the sky's the limit here. They are huge time savers. I always encourage people to check the bags and look for ones that are not puffy. Because if there's a lot of air in the bag, that means the vegetables inside of it have started to sort of decompose. And because when they do that, they emit like gases. So look for bags that are sort of like don't have a lot of air inside, is the best way to describe it. And then you'll extend the lifespan of those salads. And as I shared, I was bragging so much about the frozen section. Really look at that freezer, those options that can be stored in the freezer. Now, I do think staples are important to have when you're meal planning. So and this is what's on that shopping list guide that we're going to send to you. These, I would argue, are absolute staples, right? And a staple is defined as something that's nutritious, but also versatile and probably probably economical too because you're gonna use it in more than one way. It's going to save you money. You can buy bigger amounts that satisfy your need too. So I absolutely would say whole grains. You'll see from quinoa, the ever popular quinoa, farro oats, whole wheat pasta, canned beans, canned tomatoes. There's tomato products that are no sodium added or no salt added, I should say. Lentils, split peas, dried beans. I always have red lentils in my pantry because I make, especially this time of year, a really simple soup with like 5 ingredients, and that's going to work. It only takes like 30 minutes. It's amazing. Canned fish, olive oil, and other healthy oils, nuts and seeds. Low sodium broths are sometimes a great way to start a meal or a shortcut to one. Vinegars and spices, they really help add nutrition and flavor, and they really make your time spent in the kitchen doing all of this worth it because it's going to taste good in the end. Now in the fridge and the freezer, some of these I already pointed out, but I would say, especially this time of year, like our winter squash and our sweet potatoes, they last the longest, right? They will last for weeks if you give them a chance and you store them properly. So I love to buy them because in a pinch, if I need it, I've definitely microwaved a sweet potato and just stuffed some beans and salsa inside and called it a night. That makes me happy. For some people, it might not, but I have turned those ingredients into like a bean burger. So these are some other options that are staples but versatile, right? So things like hummus, I love dipping my vegetables into, but I also sometimes thin out with a little lemon juice or garlic, maybe some herbs, and I turn it into like a tangy dressing, or I pour it over my roasted vegetables. So there's more than one application to some of these products here. Okay. And I thought I would include this image because I thought it was really clever and something that I'm trying to implement. So I'm being intentional here by sharing this, like designating zones in your fridge and your freezer. So this is our breakfast zone, especially works with meal planning, right? So if I'm meal prep or pre-prep some things, I'm going to put it in that section, like the breakfast zone or the snack zone, or maybe I'm going to do a treat zone, right? Maybe that section in the fridge and freezer is the smallest because it's the treats. I don't know. But I could have a soup zone. there's a lot of different things that we can do here with meal planning. I'm hoping to just give you a lot of different ideas. All right, so now prepping, the best part, right? So I would say as soon as you get home, especially if you're trying to eat more veggies, wash and prep them, right? Because otherwise, if they go in the drawer, they're probably on their way to purgatory, where they're going to stay until they get thrown out. So if you are like me, I like to wash and especially ones that are going to last a little bit longer, like carrots, bell peppers, cucumbers last quite some time, grape tomatoes, sugar snap peas. These last a while. So I often always have them because then I know at least I'm trying to eat my veggies and I might prep them ahead of time and then put them in separate containers so that I can just grab them for the week. Batch cooking grains, I do this often with quinoa. Sometimes I cook it in a broth. I love my farro. Steel cut oats are great for that. Pre-prepping my proteins, I share. This is something that I've successfully done. It just helps me to pull together different meals during the week when I do this ahead of time. Overnight oats and yogurt parfaits are very similar, where we can make about 4 or 5 days worth, and we're getting great nutrition that's convenient on the go. Smoothie packs, if you are someone who's a smoothie maker every day. I love this idea. I don't do this, but I love it. So you could take, and they even sell this now, you could take frozen fruit, frozen vegetables, and put the amount that you're going to make in your smoothie for that day and just separate them out in little baggies to be frozen. So that morning, if you're making your smoothie, you just pop open the bag, add in whatever else you're going to add for your smoothie, and voila, you made life a little bit easier in terms of meal prepping. I love soups and stews that are freezer friendly. They always come in hand. So I find like if I have spare time, I will do this. And sometimes with the weather being what it is right now, sometimes I intentionally add soups because I know they're just going to be very comforting and easy, but give us great nutrition. And they could be frozen. So even if we don't have them, at least I can have them for another time when our time is short. I love making marinaras, but infusing some vegetables into them, like with some baby spinach or some mushrooms. Every so often, I make those egg muffins in the muffin tin, and muffin tins are great because you can actually make a lot of different meals using them. But they're just so handy to pop out, like with these individual portions as well. These are some other on the go options. So not only just overnight oats, but I've seen, and you have the recipe here when you get the slides, I've seen even breakfast and quinoa overnight oats. Kind of crazy, right? But it's doable. So you're going to make your quinoa, especially if you batch cook it. And this is going to be into 4 or 5 different pint-sized jars. And then you just add in those ingredients. And not only is it just the overnight oats, but you get some quinoa in there as well. So really will have some staying power. Besides breakfast, I would say argue this can be done for lunch, or if you made a smaller portion. So maybe if you made 10 of these and you just had it as a snack because maybe someone else in the family wants one too. Love this idea. I love the idea of batch cooking, as I've shared, because when you take something like whole grains or beans that are super versatile, like for example, the quinoa, you can turn it into a breakfast quinoa. If you batch cook beans with the grains, you can make those power bowls or those Buddha bowls or those glory bowls, as they're called. You can add them to a hot salad or, like a hot prepared, like if you had something warm, like a grain salad, or you just reheat it. Like I said, with the sweet potato, sometimes I'll do that. I'll stuff some leftover beans or whole grains inside the sweet potato and warm it up. It's delicious, but you can also add them to your cold salad, whether it be a vegetable salad or some leafy green salad or a cold grain salad. Love turning my beans and my quinoa into a burger. Love using them as a base for a stir fry, adding them to a soup or a stew, stuffing them inside a bell pepper, stuffing them inside zucchini. The sky's the limit, right, with these things. So batch cooking those two groups of whole grains and beans, I would argue are really great ways to turn into multiple meals for the week. And that's just an example of how to do it. All right, so last week, we're coming up to the end. Last week, we made this quinoa salad that may or may not be Lisa's arm in the picture. But I basically took some farro, and this is a very versatile recipe in terms of you get to choose. If you don't want to do quinoa and you like farro, or you have couscous, or you have bulgur, you could even do this with some whole wheat pasta left over, I'm sure. But I would say what needs to be here is the lemon, the parsley, and the onion, and then a whole grain of bean, and then your dressing, which is very simply the lemon, the apple cider vinegar, and the olive oil. The vegetables are interchangeable. So the bell pepper you see there, I wanted to invite some color with the orange, and then the zucchini. But if you like mushrooms or you like, I know you guys are going to be more creative than I am. If you like cucumbers, you get to decide which vegetables you want, or you can stick to what I used here. This literally took me like 20 minutes to prep. While the quinoa was cooking, I rinsed off the beans, I chopped up my veggies. I do have some sliced almonds on the side. We added that to our to top it because you can make this ahead of time and then store it right into individual containers. You could add a protein here, like some leftover chicken or some eggs to this, and it makes for a really hearty, nice, delicious salad. I can vouch for it because we really all enjoyed it. So I'm going to share this recipe with you too. And then just some also like just reiterating some of our meal prep ideas that I mentioned earlier, the muffin pan, a big old pot of soup, the smoothie packs are on that top left corner, the sheet pan there, and then also like a yogurt parfait. I love doing those too. These are my favorite resources. So if you're looking towards meal planning specifically, the myplate.gov, that link still works. I checked it. Those meal plans with mix and match options that I swore I loved. This is the link for that. So if it's 1,500 or 1,800 calories you want to eat, and you're like, what do I eat for breakfast and lunch and dinner? It allows you to mix and match so that you're sort of staying in line with what a balanced overall nutritious diet is. If you're looking for recipes with specifically things that are approachable but delicious and nutritious, and you're looking for ways to batch cook, I included some of my favorites that are on here that I use very often, especially in the kitchen at Cancer Wellness Center. They serve to be my inspiration. This is what we made in the kitchen. So you can see here it was some pre-rinsed uncooked quinoa that I cooked in some water. I typically do, if I'm making a savory quinoa, I'm going to make it in the broth. But you could make it with water because maybe you're going to turn your quinoa into something sweet and put some fruit and some yogurt on top and drizzle a little honey. So sometimes that's where batch cooking, you get to decide what's best for you. Lots of veggies here. So 4 cups, you could do, I had some cauliflower the other day that would work really well in the salad too. And then I rinsed those chickpeas. The recipe called for red onion. I happen to just use green onion. I like that. I like shallot as well. It has a nice, more delicate flavor. And then those sliced almonds, but you could do pecans or pistachios. You get to decide. And then that dressing was really yummy. I used apple cider vinegar. And then those proportions are there for you to see too. Okay. So I'm going to stop my share here. And I see that we do have some things in the chat that I think I'm supposed to read. Really great question in the chat. So conventional wisdom advises us to wash our fruits and vegetables. Does this apply to frozen? Great question. I heard on a food safety webinar not too long ago that they do advise that we wash them. So that does take the extra step. I am guilty of not doing that. However, if I'm going to be a responsible practicing dietitian, I would suggest that you follow, especially in the oncology world, that you follow food safety guidelines, and I can share them with you as part of what we share for resources after today. It's just like eating, I have a lot of frozen spinach because I find I add that to a lot of my, a lot of things. It's such a versatile thing. I do try to wash it. I just put it in the colander and wash it off. So I'll share that with you as well. It's a great question. Do we have any other questions or thoughts, or can anyone impart some great tidbits for me? I know we finished a little bit early.
Lori, thanks for the presentation. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and then allow people to ask questions verbally if they want to chime in. So just 1 second, everyone.